For today's case, we talk about Tasha K, now subject to $4 million in damages against Cardi B for the defamation, but says it's just the beginning. It's really not, but let's get started with this anyway. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Uncivil Law, where we learn through the misfortunes of others. As always, I hope you'll enjoy this legal education content, and today will be the day I earn your subscription. For today's story, yes, it is Tasha K, a YouTuber with a YouTube channel who said things and made up things about the Cardi B. Cardi B sued and has gotten $4 million in damages. Tasha K has learned nothing from this experience, promising, I'm going to appeal this all the way to the Supreme Court. Let me give you a spoiler alert. Nothing is going to happen. The Court of Appeals is going to uphold this unless there's some issue with damages based on some state law issue. So maybe the monetary amount will get lowered. Maybe. But the underlying liability, not so much. And the Supreme Court is definitely not touching any of this. But, let's discuss this case because it is just too hilarious. Celebrity blogger Tasha K made a rambling and defiant live address on YouTube Wednesday, vowing to go all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. It's not happening. To appeal the new $4 million jury verdict reached Monday that found her liable for defaming Cardi B. Staring into the camera, K-Bay, I guess I'll just call her Tasha K from now on. Staring into the camera, Tasha K bizarrely claimed she was the true victim in this case, not the rapper she falsely and repeatedly claimed had certain VD and worked in a restricted trade. Yeah, you can't make up stuff. Without ever identifying Cardi by name, which, if they hadn't done that before, it would have been helpful, but yeah. Tasha K alleged that a machine driven by corporate interests, including the perhaps illegal business activities by women, some illegal activities involving some controlled substances, and promiscuity and glorification of violence had tried to squeeze you for everything. It's not a machine. It's standard defamation law. It's not even really anything fancy. You just made up things. And you got busted for the things you made up. And the jury found you liable. This is kind of routine and normal. Don't do the bad things. Maybe learn from your mistakes, but no. No. Apparently not. This case was meant to drain me financially, and she did not. The case was meant to, recover for the damages you've caused. Claiming she actually planned to expand her online blogging business after the jury ordered her to pay $4 million in damages and fees. I'm not sure where she has the $4 million, but okay. I know you all maybe think this is over, but no, it's just the beginning. It's over. I'll spend just as many years as I can to protect our rights to voice our opinions. No one is threatening your right to voice opinions. Opinions are fine. You're allowed to have opinions. You're not just allowed to make up facts. Like saying this person has this STD. Or this person engages in this illegal enterprise. And so forth and so on. You can't just make up shit. You can have opinions. You don't have to like Cardi B. A lot of people don't like Cardi B. You're allowed to not like Cardi B. You're just not allowed to make up stuff. Okay. Beyond her appeal, which the Georgia resident didn't elaborate on how she might address the $1.25 million in real damages, $1.5 million in punitive damages, and $1.34 million in fees and expenses she now owes. Now, some states limit punitive damages. I don't know whether or not Georgia is one of those states. So the $1.5 million in punitive could theoretically get limited down based on limits of punitive damages. But the damages for real damages and the amount of fees and expenses seems less likely. So she's probably on the hook for $3 million and perhaps $4 million. So, there's that. Okay. Such awards for intentional torts cannot be expunged through bankruptcy. This is true, right? Bankruptcy does not protect you against these kinds of damages. So you can claim bankruptcy. It's just you'll continue to the money. You can't expunge this debt because, you know, they are required to be compensated. This trial was purely sympathy and payola to protect corporate interests. And we intend to take this all the way to the Supreme Court if need be. Not happening. It's not happening. This is a very, very routine case. Despite the people involved, it's routine. The Court of Appeals is not going to help you. They might help you on the punitive if Georgia law requires it. That's about as helpful as it's going to get. Otherwise, no. And the U.S. Supreme Court is for sure not taking this up. So you just might as well cash a check. So yeah. This is my life, and I will spend my life fighting for my livelihood and our First Amendment right as human beings. The First Amendment does not protect the defamation. It never has. Cardi B, whose real name is Belakis Alamazar, sued Tasha K after the blogger uploaded at least 38 videos referencing the rapper and making various false claims. Tasha K also posted on Twitter that the WAP rapper had some sort of disease of STD and made a Facebook comment calling them by a name related to that. Testifying at her trial 2 weeks ago, Cardi told the jurors that Tasha K's profile posting left her feeling depressed, anxious, and even in a position of self-harm. After the jury found Tasha K liable on all counts, the rapper hubbed her lawyers in the courtroom. During this time, all of you have learned about the darkest time of my life. That moment in time was fueled by the vile, disgusting, and completely false narrative that repeatedly and relentlessly shared online. I thought I'd never be heard or vindicated, and I felt completely helpless and vulnerable. It is really hard to defame a public person, but you figured out how, Tasha K. You figured it out. You figured out how to defame a public person by just making up stuff. Yeah. I've never taken for granted the platform that my fame allows me to have, which is why for over 3 years I've dedicated every resource I have to seek justice. And it's not justice just for me. The truth is that intentional harm was done to me is done to countless others every day. The only difference between me and the high schooler who's being cyberbullied and lied on by their classmates is the money and resources I have. We collectively have to say enough is enough. Well, fair enough, Cardi B. That is a reasonable thing to say. But wait, there's more. So that prior article was from Rolling Stone, and now we have an article from Jasmine. Okay, so what else can we learn? So here's what Tasha K had to say. These last 4 years fighting this conspiracy case has been extremely challenging. The verdict handed down on Monday was no shock to myself, my husband, or my legal team. It shouldn't be. We called bluff against the machine that wanted to bully me for not wavering on my personal beliefs. You're allowed to have any personal beliefs you want. You just can't make up stuff. A machine that has corporate interest to protect, the selling of oneself, the use of the controlled substances, promiscuity, and glorify violence that wreaks havoc in our society and community. Havoc. She also stated there was no defamation, no invasion of privacy, and no thoughts of self-harm. The jury disagrees with you. The jury, which I'd like to remind you, is the finder of fact, says these things occurred. So those are facts now. Referencing Cardi's testimony that the allegations drove her to a dark place mentally, before adding, and we proved that with sufficient factual evidence. You did not prove it. You might have had evidence to the contrary. You did not prove it. The jury found the other way. Cardi B proved it. That's kind of how that worked. You might have had substantial evidence. You might have had factual evidence. It might even be sufficient evidence in some way. The jury, as the trier of fact, you know what they do with their time? They sift through the competing evidence, and they decide, in a civil case, who has the better story by a 50.1% margin. whose story is ever so slightly better. And so you might have had sufficient evidence. You might have had factual evidence. The jury, not so much with that, though. They think the other evidence is more persuasive. That's one of the things juries do with their time. Tasha K continues, "We will fight no matter the cost or length, even if this takes years, all the way up to the Supreme Court." No. She also said that why the court did not ask her to remove the videos that were part of the trial, she did so anyway to show good faith. Tasha K continues by saying, "No lies were told on anyone. I never admitted to lying about anything. No one threw anyone under the bus. Mostly everything reported was a lie from the inside. The court transcripts will be available to the public soon. I forgot to add this into my speech. Read them." Now, one of the things that I had been told, and I'm willing to be factually proven wrong, right? We will correct the factual record if we make mistakes, because that's what we do with our time, right? If we make mistakes in the facts, we will tell you. One of the things that I was told is that she testified under oath. Yes, I did it. It was me. I did the things. I did it knowingly and purposefully. Ha ha ha! As she twirled her villain mustache. Not quite that, but close, right? But she says that that's a lie. She didn't confess, and we can see it in the court transcripts. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy! I can't wait for those court transcripts when we get to her testimony, and we see whether or not under oath she lied. Did she admit to lying? She says she didn't. She says the court transcripts will vindicate her. Well, maybe they will. But even if the court transcripts vindicate you and vindicate you in so much as the idea that you had admitted to lying was wrong, you know what? It doesn't matter, because the court heard the court transcripts. The jury heard the court transcripts. So we believed on the outside that part of the evidentiary package against you was you admitting to it. You say that that's false. For the moment, I'll take your word for it. But even if that is false, it doesn't matter, because the jury knew that, because they obviously heard what they heard, which is in the transcript, and still found it anyway. So maybe you didn't admit to it. The jury still found it anyway. It would be a lot easier for the jury to find it if you admit to it, but it's not necessary. People don't admit to things all the time. Juries still find them liable. It's one of the things juries do, determine truth. So I guess we'll find out. So that brings us to the end of our coverage of the Tasha K. Cardi B lawsuit, which has now resulted in $4 million in damages. That's a lot of damages. $1.5 million of actual damages, $1 million in attorney's fees, which is totally plausible, and punitive damages, other costs, so gets us up to $4 million. She says that she was prepared for this. She says this is not financially broken them. Okay, well, I hope you have a check for $4 million, because that's what, they're entitled to now. And maybe you'll learn something, or though probably not. And maybe you'll just continue to defame her, and maybe she'll get new awards against you. So that'll be fun. But if the transcripts become actively available, we will read the transcripts, and we will see what Tasha K did or did not confess to. But at least for the moment, that brings us to the end of the discussion of this case. Thank you so much for being part of the Uncivil Law family. If you enjoyed this legal education content, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. We appreciate your continuing support. Until later, my friends, cheers and goodbye.